Afrosports Summit 2023 was held with the theme Where Science Meets Business for Sport in Africa. Speaking with Nation One TV was the Chief Executive Officer for Afrosports Summit. He said that the aim of the program is to engage the stakeholders in sport to address the issue affecting sport ecosystem with the use of science in sport in Africa, he said.
If you follow the conversation so far, it's been quite obvious that there's quite a lot of work to be done in African sports, especially in the manner in which everyone is working individually, and there is that little in terms of coordination to bring all these various stakeholders in sports together to be able to have one type of conversation. And you could see what happened this morning, or in the first part of the session, where we've had people from different sides, people asking questions. So it gives a voice to every single person within the sports ecosystem to contribute to the major issues that needs addressing or needs to be discussed. And that is one of the key things. And the whole thing is that once you have people, all these major stakeholders coming to have that unified conversation, it basically strengthens the discussions that are going to be had, because at the end of the day, you want the discussions to be as powerful as they can be. And like they say, if you put people together, there's strength in unity. So that's one of the main things we are trying to do, essentially, to bring these people together, where we have a common voice. We get to also benefit from the spirit of networking, partnerships, collaboration, which is really key, which also facilitates the business side of sports, which is key. Also, accelerate the use of science in the way we run sports generally in Africa. So I think that the tag for the Afrosports Summit is where science and business meet for sports in Africa. And essentially, that's what we are trying to do: accelerate business, accelerate science, essentially develop sports at the end. You saw the governance and legal discussion, for instance, and how there's a lack of stability in a lot of the things in the various institutions. Issues about doping, issues about bribery, issues about corruption. So the governance and legal side, for instance, is a very key thing. And like they say, in every single thing, leadership is key. Once you have good leadership, it can drive the other part of the body forward. So leadership is key, and I feel like the governance and a legal part of things is an area that we are lagging behind. Beyond that, you mentioned data research and technology. It's also definitely a key part that we should be looking at. Commercialization, for instance. How do we also commercialize sports? How do we raise revenue, which is key for all the clubs that are saying, or sports properties that are saying, we don't have money, we don't have funds. Why should we be looking at this conversation? So these are all, bottom line is, almost every single area in sports that you can look at in Africa needs a lot more work to be done. And even for the areas that are flourishing, you could still look at them and say that even we can still get a step ahead. And that is what we are trying to do, basically drive excellence. For those that are behind, push them to start moving. For those that are doing well, we are thinking about how can we even get them to function better. And that's the whole point. Afrosports is here to stay. We had the first edition at the same venue, Accra International Conference Center, last year. So definitely next year there's going to be Afrosport 2024. We are not really sure where that would happen, as to whether it will happen again in Ghana, because Ghana has hosted the first two editions. But what I can say for sure is there will definitely be Afrosports every single year happening somewhere in Africa.
When you are bringing such initiatives to Africa, I don't want to limit it to Ghana only, to Africa, it takes time. I think we are trying to turn a new page, speak to our ecosystem about why science is important, about why we need to work together. So it takes some time. So obviously the challenging part, I think it's expected, but also I think the welcoming that some stakeholders have given and shown interest is the positive side that we have to take and keep going. So as you mentioned, 2022 was the first time Afrosport came to Accra. Yeah, it was one day. Now we've moved to 2 days, so that shows growth. Growth in attendance as well, growth in speakers. We've got 20 nationalities represented in this year's event, so that speaks a lot. So I think for us, that's the positive that we have to drive on. and keep pushing until we get to a standard where, or a stage where we think we are really impacting the sports ecosystem in Africa. And but unfortunately, that's where winning happens. Winning now is not only what we see. I think winning comes from the little details. The little details means you have to be very objective. Being objective means you have to collect data, you have to analyze data, and that's why science is important. The naked eye can see everything on the pitch, whether it's on the running tracks, whether it's on the football pitch, it's on the basketball court. The running eye or the naked eye cannot see everything. So sometimes you really have to go back and look at the little details in the game, and that's why science is important. I think if we were speaking 20, 30 years ago, Africa would have relied on natural talent and abilities, and it's gotten us to some extent. But now we are at the point where the rest of the world is competing with us, and our physicality and natural ability is not enough anymore. So that tells us they're doing something unique and special for them to be catching up to what we were really good at. And that's where the science comes in, that's where the details. If science can tell you how a kid is going to grow in 5, 10 years, you will be in a much better position to predict that talent than if you're not aware of that. As again, when you're picking talent identification, for instance, we always go for the physical players, the tall players, but that doesn't mean 10 years those guys are going to be the best talents. Sometimes it's in the little ones. In the little ones, for us to be able to predict what the future is going to look like, you need to include science, you need to include data. So that, for me, is where I think it's very important. And we can go on and on and on. But clearly we know now that for us to keep competing at international stage, we have to really embrace science and look into the details.
Just a step towards doing the actual work. It's one thing to talk about it, and there's another thing to actually do it and implement the things we're talking about. So I hope that this is not just about us talking about what could be and what could not be, or us comparing ourselves to the West, or us saying that we need this or we deserve that. But we're actually going to put in work to make sure that we're getting where we want to get with regards to sports. But I think it's a really good initiative. The main thing is just coming together, really. Just bringing all the different stakeholders together for us to work together instead of everybody trying to do their things separately. Because at the end of the day, it's Ghana, and when we go out, we have Ghana on our chest. We don't have PBA, or we don't have any different. It's Ghana. So I think that we should just coming together and bringing our resources together, understanding, and being accountable to whatever we're doing. I think that that's what's going to take us the next step of being a sports country, or whatever you might put it. But yeah, just coming together and making sure that we can make it happen, and it's not just talk. Or like they said in there, it's about creating an audience, bringing people together to want to patronize the product we're selling. At the same time, we're creating opportunities for the media, we're creating opportunities for people, for health workers, we're creating opportunities for entrepreneurs just to network at the event. So what we do is we're trying to make sure that whatever we're doing, it can be fun. Even though we're playing basketball, we want to make it a fun experience where people want to come with their girlfriends, people want to come with their families.
It's about time as Africa we start talking about these things. We start putting together experts, in such summit like this or such forums, and then we can passionately address the problem facing Africa. But to continue to catch up, especially in our sports development, catch up with the rest of the world. This is very important. I think it's too much, or it's something that we can catch up, because the only thing we need to do is to ask ourselves, how is Mr. A doing it, or how is country A doing it, and they're doing so well, and you copy, and then you have to improve on what they're doing. So it's not something that is beyond us. We can do it. We only need to look at what others are doing, copy it, make it better, and then we'll be better than them. It's as simple as that. The Ghana Olympic Committee, as you know, it's helping in development of sports on behalf of the IOC. We have things that we do as representatives of the IOC, especially in awarding scholarships to athletes, in funding development programs for most of the national teams, or even the federations. These are things that we've been doing, and these are things that we want to increase doing. Okay, it is not only about the GOC. Everybody, every stakeholder has a part in this development program, or if we want to develop our sports. The government is a big shareholder in our sports, so the ministry also have to do its bit. you guys as media people who needs to project the sports and make sure that it becomes attractive for corporate sponsorship or for brands who want to relate to the sports. You also have your bit. We as administrators who need to make sure that we're putting to athletes when coming out with good programs for athletes to go through. Everybody has it. So it has to be a joint effort. And like they said, some of the speakers said, there's so much disjointed in the efforts we're doing. So once we have forums like this and we realize that, look, A, B, C, D needs to come together in order for us to get to C, then we start focusing on that. But we as an Olympic committee, we've done so much. I mean, roughly in a year, we give no less than $300,000 to the federations to help with their coaching courses, with their athletes' scholarship, and so many other things. But it won't take only the GOC to help develop Ghana sports. Everybody has a bit to play. That's why I said the media, the government, the corporates, Ghana, everybody has to. And once we work together, trust me, it shouldn't be too difficult for us to get back to where we were some years back.
Thank you for watching Nation One TV. Kindly subscribe for more news updates.